So this being the first one, Jake, I don't know how we're going to introduce it other than
Hello and welcome to Two Guys Flipping Through Comics. But we're also creating a comic, so we're going to be showing you, interesting things about the comics that are influencing us as we are meeting on a Sunday, making our comic, and we just taped our 45-minute episode of the making of Turbo Pit Fighter. These are some internal pages and these are our roughs. This is our total process. So now we're going to be looking through some comics that caught our eye as we've been collecting at conventions or stores or ordering off eBay or what have you. And Kurt, what are you going to be showing us today?
I am going to be showing off. This is The Jewel in the Skull. It's a Michael Moorcock book that was brought and adapted to comics by a gentleman by the name of James Cawthorn. This is English. It's trade. Well, it's an oversized direct to market, so it doesn't really come through like a Marvel or DC
Could I see the
publisher.
spine?
Yep.
Could I see the spine?
Yep.
Okay, that's a thick book. So
Yep.
this is a
Yep.
total graphic novel.
Yep. This is a total graphic. Now, the thing I want to talk about is Jim Cawthorn is on my top like 10, close to 5 in the way he is inking.
Settings. He's got
And
great. He's got great
yeah,
settings.
for me, inking is all about spotting black. You're dealing with a white piece of paper, so you got the white part down, and spotting black is going to be where you want to come into. James here, Jim, he really does it. He's also very close to Philippe Droulet, who is one of my top favorite comic book artists. But you could see, one of the secrets is stippling.
Yeah.
I don't want to, and I hated stippling in high school, cursed my art teachers out to no end. And now I curse myself for not bringing it to the work. But
I
you
have
can
a.
see, I mean,
I
he
have a
definitely is bringing in like,
Yeah, so I actually have a no stippling policy in my classroom. I teach middle school in the
really?
Bronx. Yeah, because
Mm.
if you have a classroom of kids that are pecking away like woodpeckers, and you will go out of your mind and throw yourself out of a window. So and then I make that a point, and then we see how many kids, because I have a chart that says, this is hatching, this is cross hatching, this
Right.
is scumbling, and this is stippling. And I say there's no stippling, and I make a joke of it because some kid's gonna go do it. I said, imagine if everybody was doing that at the same time, you would want to rip your
Right.
optic nerves out. So
Yeah,
so
it's
I see the Paul Galisi in this. He's got very strict anatomy, for his figures and proportion. And that reminds me, kind of like Paul Galisi energy. But then his inking, you see like pre Sin City black and white balance here, right? What year is this?
oh gosh, this has got to be 78.
So they get the rights from Moorcock to
Yep.
do a piece, but is Moorcock directly in on this, or is this just like how does
I
how
think it's
does
a license piece. I think James is completely doing this on his own. I think there was rumor that they were besties, like they were friends in the scene. Just a little history about Michael Moorcock. He's I don't know if the word antithesis is right, but he really anchored in with Sword and Sorcery with a character by the name of Elric
work of
Melniboné.
Melniboné?
Melniboné.
Uh,
But even more importantly, he was in the prog rock scene. He actually even had a band um,
which guy?
who did an album, Michael Moorcock.
Right.
And
Okay.
I don't know if have you ever heard of a band called Hawkwind?
That's my band. That's Lemmy.
Dude, that's my band. Give them back.
Are you
I
crazy?
saw Nick Turner. I saw Nick Turner live
I
at a
have
place.
I have pretty rare vinyl of
Oh gosh, when we hang out, that's all it's going to be.
well,
So they did a complete concept album of Michael Moorcock's Dreaming City,
How did I
and
miss
Moorcock
that?
does a lot of like explanative, like he basically reads out passages and stuff. So me being a total sword and sorcery fiend, I've been hunting everything and anything down, and so therefore you would eventually come across this masterpiece. So I do believe that there was even probably some
Okay.
funding. I don't remember getting much in the way of
Well, the
too much background or history, but he has a whole world, and it's the Hawk Moon series, and so there's the Chronicle of Time and Space, and it's just crazy what he's able to kind of like keep playing with and stuff. So very near and dear to me. But this work is also just another level of contributing to my
well, I gotta
fascination and obsession.
well, as a teacher and as a graphic designer for many years, more than 17 years, I would say that I have to call him out on his type and his font and his
I agree with you completely. I
um
agree. It should be
and
hand done. It should be
so
hand
yeah,
done.
so no more be said, but that means it sounds like he was doing it himself. He's literally doing the
Yes.
paste ups and literally doing all the grunt work,
Yep.
to get the letters on there. So that is a shortcut. Um, it's pretty tasteful when you have the little narration boxes that are not
Yes.
outlined, but he
Right.
doesn't have enough clear space around the letters on the outline, and that is like a bad form. When
Yeah.
the letters,
It's kind of jammed in there, I think is what it happens.
yeah,
And
look at
you
that.
know,
He's got dead space on the left. He could
yeah.
have
Yep.
really smoothed that out. Um,
If
I
it was
mean,
handwritten and obviously laid out and given the same treatment as he's doing with this other work,
if the guy would have had
you do have a masterpiece.
if he would have had another 15 minutes, he could have made that on the left, that all caps text. Could have just made that like a shadow font, and that would have been artistic, with a black
Yeah. Yeah.
background. So
Yeah.
just simple things like that. The guy is just like all art and no typography.
Yeah.
But
God
that
bless
said,
him.
that said, I love the art, and you see Hal Foster in there, right, from
Yes.
the Prince
Yes.
Valiant. The real artist from Elric of Melnibourne was P. Craig Russell. He was the chief artist
Yep.
on that character.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
I didn't know that Moorcock had a secret life as a musician, and I would
Oh,
love to find out what he
if you're a
played.
hawk, I'm surprised you didn't fall down that hole when it came to
Well, let's talk about that
Hawkwind.
off. Yeah, let's talk about that offline because I have some vinyl called Pink Wind, which is
Mm-hmm.
the combination of the Pink Fairies and Hawkwind when they made
I
a very
know
special
them.
project.
I
So I
know them
got
as
you on
well.
that. I got you on that. But
I have digital copy of that. So
I love that you're giving us a sense of this guy's work.
yeah.
It also kind of reminds me of our favorite manga series, Cobra. And
Oh, good call.
I talk
Good
about
call.
the flow. This is what I said when we looked at some Cobra pages online. Is that he needs more black and he needs more overall balance. So
Yes. Yes.
The Cobra had a lot of this kind of compositional quality and big splashes. This guy, has some interesting things going on because he's got the psych influence, and he's got these just like unexplained big long splash sequences. This is great stuff, and
It is. It is.
I think you're also giving it a very fair, flip through, to get a big sense of the whole book, and it's great, and that people should probably try and find this book. And as far as our influence, I would take away that when I see stuff like this, it really inspires me to lay out the action sequences with no shortage of detail in every single panel. I mean, that's what this guy is
Yeah.
giving you, right, as
Yeah.
backgrounds and stuff.
The only other critique I would make is, and I think this is just with comic books in general, is he's using probably only two instruments, if not one. Um, the stippling is probably a rapidograph or something that wouldn't, if you're using a dip pen, You don't want it to like just drop everything, but it could have just been a very fine point brush um, that he's just kind of ran through. So there is an equality, but it's all in the same level. So there's no penetrating depth in spaces going back in black or anything being pulled forward as it's getting lighter in line contrast. It's the only other thing that, makes my interior go, ooh, if I was to redo this, I would. Like this, for instance, here, I would have gone totally black on this.
Well, that reminds me
I
of
would not have.
yeah.
I mean, the hatching is fine, but then from the center out, this would just all be black. And then put some nice little atmospheric thin lines to then drive back into the panel that way. That's
Yeah,
me and my own
you could
peculiars.
have worked all that other extra white space and then done something with the lettering. But you know who
Yeah.
else I see? If you go back to that panel you were showing, if this is 1978, this guy might be looking at Mobius for those kind of textures.
Yeah, just
And that's like a wagon wheel, but
yep, yep,
Mobius
yep.
had this kind of like shading where it would be kind of like broken up a lot by these irregular black lines, and I use it
Right.
myself in my inking to do like Mobius lines. I guess there's a joke there because there's something the Mobius strip, right, which is not the
Yes, yes.
artist, but
Yeah.
yeah, this guy has some very interesting contoured shading, right? The shading changes
Yes.
directions, and that gives you an idea of contour. And it's really, really rare that somebody does it with such a high percentage of no awkward, you know, panels, no, awkward faces. I do see he does have a couple here and there, but it's usually like in the background, and
Hmm.
I have that same problem myself because if it's getting smaller and smaller, how accurately can you possibly draw, right?
Right, right. And then how
So
big how big are these originals? Like is he working like maybe at like an 18 by 24? Or
so
each panel is just its own page that he's working on, and then he's bringing them in. Lord only knows. I've never really done that much depth
so yeah,
but I
go
would
ahead.
say he was probably working on something a large format.
Yeah, and the great backgrounds, great foreshortening. Give this guy a plug, and then
Yep,
maybe you could come back later at another episode to anything else that the guy did.
give an update. Absolutely. So, yep, that's my share.
All right,
So,
so
what do you got?
well, you said we got to talk, about our comic and and our influences. So at this point in my life, my bucket list days, I'm trying not to pick up any comics that I can't really get a lot of influence from my own artwork. Time is
Hmm.
too short, and you talk about a couple of great artists, from the manga side, and they're kind of story flow, their overall page balance. This was a guy, Mark Beachum, that did a lot of good girl comics, and he was, I think, pretty popular at the time. I'm sure the guy has a great career, um, having created all these
Yeah, we
comics and
we
doing.
actually met him a couple of times when at Jacob Javits in the mid '90s. Really nice guy, really cool guy too. So.
So he's really, really, I think, looking at female models, or
Hmm.
pictures or photography or something. Sometimes these guys, hire models. I don't know if Beachum ever did that, but even if you just do that for a couple of sessions and tell them to strike positions, that you just take sketches that you use and reuse, right? A lot of the same, kind of poses. But this guy like almost crosses the line into, like softcore, or like just exploitational comics. Here you see, a total bathroom scene, and everything is really, really brief costumes where you see a lot of crack and a lot of stuff. The thing is, like, he had strong female characters, and what I would take away from this is that this is going to a buyer of somebody that thinks this is this cool superhero that's going to kick ass, and then it ends up being kind of like, just salacious poses, and not, I guess, not too much story. I don't bother to read the letters when I flip through this, because number one, his lettering is so small. It's also that font. What was
Yeah.
it, Whiz Bang or something? And maybe not Whiz Bang, but it just looks like, a type font. But this is a better example of, professional lettering. I guess if you really like, hold it close and slow down, there might or might not be a story to it. But I don't think most people buying this are, looking at, are leering at the story. um,
Does wonky handwritten fonts bother you
um,
when you're reading a story?
whatever gets the job done. Typography
Yeah.
is just like you have legibility versus style, stylization, and then you could
Yeah.
never, with those whiz bang things, you could never do enough hand kerning, right? Because the spacing when you just type it out is so obvious, and so then you have to go in
Right.
and hand kern. That means like move the relationship pairs of every single letter together. I'm not going to spend too much time on the backup feature on this one. Here I have, this is just Zenozoic Tales, which is Mark Schultz, and he's one of our favorite inkers, probably one of the top 10 classic inkers in the vein of Frazetta, and there's many of them, but the just the quality of the anatomy and the angles, and then you have the what we're talking about is the darkness balance for black
Yeah.
and white comics. You have
Yeah.
things like stippling. You have things
Yep.
like You see, there's many layers here, and I
Yep.
love that. I love that you got. Look, if you look, I didn't even notice these details. Look at this bug, these giant beetles on this water pipe, and then there's a regular water bug to show you how big these things are in the Cenozoic era, right? And then all the way in the background, our characters are going down the thing and with the perfectly formed bodies, and this character that Frazetta used to draw, right?
It's himself.
Yeah, who is that character
It's
in
him.
Zenozoic Tales? Yeah, so you know,
It's Frank.
and we see here, this artist in particular, and the way he would draw boots and he would draw like leather vests and stuff, I think would influence Tim Vigil, and his ilk later on. When you realize that there's nothing cooler than black leather gloves and finger, snarled up, showing,
Yeah.
and you might have gotten like little tastes of that, with some of the clothing texture whenever it's like shiny, like you can see these boots. But then they took it farther with the cheesecake, by making it so skin tight that it was really showing off, the figures. But from start to finish, just really artistic. Look, the angle between these closing doors, this is just like Indiana Jones type stuff. And then just perfectly formed figures, even all the background figures. This is where I would fall down. I'd be like starting to get lazy and tired drawing all these guys, right? Perfectly formed with those beautiful drapery lines and the beautiful drafting. This is like more draftsmanship than comic art. And when we talk about like Hal Foster, these are guys drawing
Al
direct,
Williamson.
uh-huh, drawing direct lines. And then scenes like this, like this is the kind of stuff that Paul Galassi would lay out, and the guy that you just
Yeah.
showed us. um so yeah, I wanted to show you that, and then using getting the most out of my time, uh, I want to show some good. This is, I guess, good girl, kind of like midline, graphics, good art, but as far as just like laying out really just line art, not too much, on the darkness balance, and then you get here and something changes, right? This does remind you of Frazetta, and this is just like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
stylized. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think as I'm just seeing this, we might be seeing different artists. This looks like the same hand here and here. I'm not sure if it's the same, and then here, and then this. but then very very different, not too consistent. I would say maybe this is like a bullpen type of pitching in thing. Um, you got 2 pages of that guy, and then they transition back to this other style. So how many artists? It says featuring the artwork of Paul Abrams. What does that mean? Um, so this could have been something that he had lying around. Not to
You
overanalyze
know
it,
how
but
many issues that got into, or is this just like a one shot?
well, Flair is this other guy, Mark Beachum, right? This was
Right,
his
right,
character, right? I believe,
right.
or no, or is that a different guy named Bair, Bair,
I don't know. I don't
Mark
know.
Bair? I
So
know that.
this is the name of the house. This is
Well, this is
the
yeah,
publishing house.
so these are the offerings, right? So this is the big name artist, and I'm sure Mark Beecham did Flair, but I think there was another guy named Bair, Bair. Um, this is like their I guess their B-side, right? And it's actually pretty decent. It's hard to do professional level comic art, with these people on shoestring budgets and probably half the page rates of Marvel, right? They got good stuff out of it. So these are up and coming artists, right? And they're doing this just kind of stuff. I mean, I should try to get into the story, but they have recurring characters like Flair and Tigress. This is not the only appearance of Tigress, but this is the first issue of her with her own name, and of course they bring the tie-in because Flair is their landmark character, as opposed to Rose, which I guess is more of a one-shot or a secondary character. I don't know how many Rose
Hmm.
there are, but you know, this was these great artists that would do what they call cheesecake. It's just like doing really attractive females and having them prance around, and there's not too much real action and like fighting and ass kicking, which is what makes our comic different, Turbo Pit Fighter. Um, but then you get a little bit down the line, and here is some Tim Vigil, and this is a very early Tim Vigil called
What
Omen.
year is that, Jake?
Um, so if I could get a year, it says 89.
Oh
It says
my lord.
89, and so this is Omen #1. And this is kind of like superhero-ish, but it's more maybe sci-fi. You have like costumes and spandex and stuff. But I mean, this is just total Jack Kirby here. This is Omen, and I think the second issue they had to change the name from Omen, or no, from oh, you know what? It explains that these guys were really pissed off and very sassy in the comments here. They were very snarky in the comments here. They originally called it Omega, and Marvel gave them a
Ooh.
C and D for Omega the
Ooh.
Unknown, which was like a kind of like a poorly selling Marvel comic. And to think that you could have the word Omega, which is a letter in the Greek alphabet, all to yourself
Right.
is like bullying. So here these indie guys are fighting back, so they called it Omen instead. And I guess that's just as good. But all of this was last minute changes. Who knows how far down the line they got with lettering and everything, for this before they put it out and they got the C and D. They probably got the C and D when it was in previews, right? Because in previews you have the cover and the title and maybe a
Yes.
sample of art,
Yes.
and then you take
Yeah.
orders. What do you think Tim Vigil's orders were on the previews at that time in '89?
Oh
Was he getting
man.
a couple thousand?
Uh, 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 Orders that are enough to be pissed off that you would have to go back through and yeah, yeah. It's probably another reason he never wanted to work for the big two.
Yeah, I mean when
And going
the
forward on it. But yeah, it was an easy paycheck, to keep roof over your head and clothes on your back and food in your belly,
he went
because
pro.
he was really the man at 89. He's striving,
I don't think this guy was
striding.
waiting tables at this stage.
Oh no, that is
So
some. I just
but he was
found all three on eBay. I think I'm gonna pull the trigger and get them. Once
steady
again,
work.
why this is not a good thing we're doing, Jake. I will be
I love.
getting yelled at a week from now, but anyways.
So one thing that we might not have too much of in our comic is too much just blatant Jack Kirby dots and Jack Kirby dark areas. I mean, this is just
Right.
straight up Jack Kirby
Yeah.
influence, and
Yeah.
and I love it, and I do feel free to use it in my school, all over, all my comic making. But for Turbo, we just stay clear of Kirby dots. Great stuff though, and Tim Vigil here is really setting himself apart.
Ah, yeah.
This is kind of like, he's showing you that he's got Kirby designs as far as all these aliens and all these costumes and things, but he's really taking it to the next, and he's going like with this real kind of like European influence heavy metal style. He's got this real cosmic space age, kind of like almost psychedelic design going on, and this is on
Yeah.
top of the
Yeah.
layer of the Kirby, influence from the '60s. So this, is looking like Warlock, comics at this point. But there's this
Right.
character, whoever Omen is, and then, he's transitioning back to like some, Earth scene or something. But look at he's always had the shrubbery and the growth. He's just beginning here, but he would obsess on that stuff in all of his later comics, with the plants and the trees and the rocks and the nature, just like
Yep.
really, really just natural,
Yep.
and he's working bigger here, bigger panels, right? But all
Yeah.
very, very well formed. I see a little bit of Michael Golden in him at this stage, and Michael Golden was a Marvel Comics sensation when he started drawing the first couple issues of the Micronauts, which was a
Right.
huge toy tie-in, and I was gaga over Microsoft Micronauts. I said Microsoft when it came out, and Michael Golden, and I followed that comic until Michael Golden left. If you have any of those early Micronauts, those are great.
I couldn't get enough of it either.
Of
Yep.
course, he went on later to do Bucky O'Hare, but you see that that influence here. Um, this is just early Tim Vigil, no ads, total indie comics. This is him and his
Uh,
pals, right? Him and his brother and his
Dave
pals doing
Quinn.
North Star Comics, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
there
And then
is
Faust.
a plug on the back page for Faust. So this is like
Yeah.
coming out pre-Faust, and this is all, look at that, all
Oh.
just them on their own. This is not corporate
Ooh.
stuff. This is
Ooh.
just creators, and look at like the weakness of these thin lines compared to the strength on the other side here, a left and
Yeah.
right spread, right? The dark side and the light side, right? This
Yeah.
is really getting into
Yeah.
some Darth Vader vibes and stuff. But look at the mechanics on the hand, man. I mean,
Right.
I can't knock it out like that. This is like Bern Hogarth, fingers and joints and little
Yeah, he's
mechanical.
he is definitely one of the most exceptional people to come into comics. It's just it's so obvious.
Well
It's
said,
so
well said.
obvious.
So this is
So
early Robicide. This might even have been like this might have even been like a showcase to try to get with Marvel or Dark Horse or whoever's out at that
maybe,
point, and then they didn't
maybe.
make it, so they put it out themselves, right?
Yeah, I don't
Because
think
they got
he
a.
ever really chased. I don't think he ever really chased it. I mean, I think once they've got their taste of the black and white independent market and how much was really getting held on to, you know, it was good. But hey, look, I just came up with a possible title for these videos.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm thinking of Comics That Influence, episode 1.
Sure.
So
Sure.
so
You
with
know.
that being said, though, you have plenty to share. I have plenty to share. This is just another breakout video for our Turbo Pit Fighter comic that you and I are working on. We get together every Sunday at 11 in the morning and spend almost an hour checking in on the story, the pencils, and the inks.
Yep.
So
We
jump
do
over
draw.
there as well.
we do drawing live. Kurt was just
Yep.
working on a pinup today, and
Yep.
that means Kurt's a bad boy because when you go away from your sequential homework and you start doing pinup, but look, I did it myself one episode, so guilty as charged, and I'm
Right.
almost done with this one. I just gotta put the all these millions of different faces in there, and I gotta try to like fade that back so that it's like we don't have to do that much work. And then here's another pinup. So we're guilty as charged too. Pinups sometimes do take away from the main thing. Until next time, Kurt, we really I think we had a really good first segment, and I love doing this.
I do agree. I agree.
Yeah.
That's how you and I roll.
All right. Thanks, man.
Cool. All right. We'll see everybody next week. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, guys.